What's up, guys? It is Sneaky here, and today we're going to be making a mission from scratch. Let's get into it. No, I'm just kidding. We have to do an intro. So today we're going to be doing a single player mission versus AI. And in the part 2 video, I will be adding information regarding if you want to have a co-op versus AI. There's some extra managers and things that we need to add in there to handle that. That way the server can pass information between the players. Links, resources, and timestamps for the video chapters are in the description as always. Additionally, I have my social media down there if you need to get in touch or just want to follow things I'm doing, such as streaming or personal projects. Finally, please don't be hesitant to share feedback. These videos do take some time, and I want to improve them to make sure they're as useful as they can be and easily digestible. If you have positive or negative feedback, you can rate the video or leave a comment to let me know. You can also just say hello or give me suggestions for future videos. Without further ado, let's get into creating the project. We're going to open Arma Reforger tools. We're going to create a new project. We're going to come up with a name. Highly recommend you don't put spaces in your name, but you can if you want to. It just makes things a little bit different. So we're going to name this just scenario tutorial. I do like to have my words capital letters, and we're going to pick a spot. You can leave yours in the basic add-ons area. Personally, I like to keep my stuff separate. I have a separate hard drive for development stuff here, and I have a folder for my workshop stuff, and then an add-ons folder where I drag completed projects or projects I want to test within the base game. So I want to pick my workshop folder. You can create that folder anywhere. We have dependencies here. We don't need any for this project. We're building it up with just the base things within Arma Reforger. Okay, we're going to go ahead into the world editor, and we are going to load eden.ent. And now that our world is loaded, we are going to create a subscene. So hit create new world in top left, subscene. The reason we do this is we want all of our mission components and scenario components to be in this subscene. We don't edit the main world of Eden here. So once this finishes loading here, you're going to see on the left-hand side the hierarchy. We have Eden. We have this drop down here. You can click on one of these and hit F to focus on it. So you see all this stuff in this world is all in this layer within the Eden. And then all of our mission stuff is going to be in this unnamed area that we will name here shortly. Go ahead and go back to our basic workbench, the first, the main workbench area. And on the left here, make sure whatever you named your folder, I'm going to reference as scenario tutorial because that's what I called this add-on. We're going to create some subfolders in here for organizational purposes. We're going to make a new folder called missions. This one's actually pretty important. Make sure you put the S on the end. I've actually had a couple people reach out to me. They forgot to put the S on. Didn't realize it was important, but it does end up causing problems with testing the mission later on. I like to make an art folder for any art. And I make a worlds folder. The worlds folder is going to hold our mission along with all the layers and stuff inside of it. So I like to keep it separate. Then instead of cluttering up this main folder, I think organization is crucial. Go back to the world editor, and we're going to go ahead and file, save world as. And in our scenario tutorial, we're going to save the world in our worlds folder. So I'm going to name this scenario tutorial world. Okay, another organizational thing we're going to do here is add layers. We're going to rename this first one to logic. We're going to right click and add another one called blue. And we'll right click and add another one called red. What these layers do is store different prefabs and entities inside of it, and it just makes organization a lot easier to find what we need. So in blue and red, for example, we'll hold our units and waypoints, and in logic, we'll hold the general game mode stuff that would apply to the entire world. Okay, make sure you save it at this point if you haven't already. We're going to make sure we're in the active logic layer. You can right click on a layer and set it as active. That just means when we add things into the world, it will go under that layer. The first thing we're going to do is add a prefab for our game mode. So in the bottom resource browser here, go down to prefabs, MP, modes, and there's a couple modes here. We're going to go for the plain one and click and drag it into the world. Now this is a logic component that we're adding into the world. So you don't need to worry about where it goes. All right. It's not a physical object. It just needs to be in the world somewhere. I like to put mine all in the same place just so I can, I don't know, find them easier. That way they can hang out together. Good stuff there. All right. So in the base game mode here, we have a bunch of different components attached to this prefab. We've got a respawn handler, groups manager, name tag stuff, all types of things attached to this. So it's a good foundation to work from. The next thing we want to add is factions, and we're going to find this in our prefabs folder again. So go up to prefabs. We're going to go to MP, managers, and factions. And we're going to add the USX USSR. It's the fourth one, and dragging that into the world as well. Once again, we don't need to worry about where this goes. Loadouts is going to be the next one we do here, and this is also in the prefabs MP managers section. So we can just hit the managers button and go into loadouts, and then we want to loadout manager USX USSR, also happens to be the fourth one. And another thing we want to add here is going to be perception. The perception manager helps the AI see things, to be aware, to know that another unit exists. So we want to go ahead and make sure we add that. Otherwise, the AI will just stand around, and even if there's someone right in front of them, they can't really know. We got to add that logic, So we're going to go into prefabs, and this is a different folder now. We're going to go into world and game. And we're looking for a perception manager here. And we're going to drag that in as well. And the last thing we're going to do is add AI world. So this is where we can add a nav mesh, which allows the AI to traverse the terrain here. So go into prefabs, AI, and SCR AI world is what we want. And we'll go ahead and add this in. And while we're here, we're going to go ahead and edit this. So on the top right, go to nav mesh world component, click on it. And we need to set a nav mesh file. So there's a couple different ones in here, and I kind of did a test, and I mean, the GM Eden one works, the campaign one works. We'll just use the campaign for this. I don't know if there's a difference, what the difference is at this time, but just in case there, you want to pick something else, that's fine, but I recommend sticking with me. That way, if there's an issue, and you follow this to the T, it'll be easier to diagnose the problem. So at this point, we've got kind of the base game logic down. We're going to go ahead and save this. And you can see this logic is all within our single layer here. So if we need to find something specifically, we can always go through here and grab it. So before we move on to mission logic, I just want to kind of go over these briefly. We already talked about SCR AI world. This is going to, this has a nav mesh. And a nav mesh is what it sounds. It's a navigation mesh. It allows the soldiers to, run around here. It tells them where they can run, so they don't end up running through a wall. So we need to have that. Otherwise, they probably won't move anywhere because they'll think there's nowhere to move. They're just AI. They do what we tell them. The perception we already went over. A game mode plane we kind of touched on. This has an automatic respawn handler. So instead of writing all these scripts to really go from like super nothing, we can use some of these base components that the game already has. They've already got a respawn handler. So, why would we want to write that from scratch? Maybe you do, and you want to accept that challenge. That's cool. This video is for beginners primarily. So we want to focus on kind of cheating a little bit here and there where we can, using the stuff that's already in. Down here, we have, for the respawn, we can force a faction, which we will later. And we can also force a loadout, which we'll also do later. And the other thing was the loadout manager. And in here, there's player loadouts. You can see, we got US and USSR. And if you click the drop down here, it'll tell you the name, and it'll actually show you where the resource is. So if you wanted to change something, you could change stuff as well. You can even hit this plus and add maybe a custom loadout if you wanted to do that as well. So this is the point where I'm going to show you the basics, but there's a lot you can do to kind of expand off of this. and start experimenting and, learning, and you're going to struggle and break things, but that's okay. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is mission logic. So we're going to switch to the red layer, and in here, we're going to add our AI enemies, essentially. So you can pick any place on the map you want to go. I'm at the airfield, and I kind of like this spot over here, this little house. This is like ideal, right? They got a little chicken area. They got some beehives out back. I saw here they are, some beehives. And they got a little garden. I mean, this is like my ideal house right here. So we're gonna protect my house, all right, guys? We're gonna protect it, please. All right, so we want to add some enemies first. Okay, so I'm just over by the beach from the house here. I guess not really a beach, it's a rock beach. But I'm gonna go over to this area, and this is where we're gonna add the enemies. So we're gonna go into, we're gonna start the Arma Reforger base area. We're gonna go back to our prefabs, and we're gonna go into groups and then op4. Alphabet, there we go, groups. And then we have blue for independent, I think, and then op4. So this is where we could add whoever we wanted to. And we're going to put them in the world. So I'm just going to do a sentry team. And I'll do we'll do 2 maneuver groups. All right, these maneuver groups are going to be the flankers. All right, and now if you want to adjust, because they're all facing out to the ocean, probably not very tactically sound. On the up here, you can hit the rotate tool, or you can just hit E. And we're going to rotate these boys around 180-ish degrees. And one more. Okay, now we got our guys rotated, I'm going to hit W to switch back to moving their actual position. So we have 3 groups, and now we want to add waypoints for these guys. So let's go forward here, and let's pick the waypoints we want them to go to. So I want 1 to go up the middle, and then the 2 are going to flank. So we want to add our waypoints by going to prefabs, AI, waypoints. And we have different types of waypoints. We have an attack waypoint. We have a get in waypoint. So the first one we'll do is attack. And we're going to put it up by this area. That's actually perfect, right where it is. On the top right, we want to name this waypoint. So I'm just going to do R waypoint 1, or you can type it all out if you want to, red waypoint 1. And then, a little lag in the editor here, no worries. And then we want to do 2 move waypoints for our flankers. So we'll go down here, and we'll find the open gate, patrol, there we go, move. So I'm going to add 1 move over here. And I'll add another move somewhere over here. So this will be 3. I'm editing the name in the top right. And then here. So we're having some trouble selecting. We were picking world objects, which is okay. But this is why we have layers. So you can go to the red layer on the top left here, click on it. So we have waypoint 1, waypoint 3, and then we have the 1 waypoint here that we didn't rename yet. So I can just click on it and it'll select it in the world. And we'll name it red waypoint 2. There we go, perfect. We'll go ahead and save here. So now we just need to tell our AI to run up to these specific waypoints. So we have our sentry team, which we determined was going to go up the middle. So we'll click on them. They have all their components here. We could just scroll down to group waypoints. We want to go to a static waypoint. And in here, you're going to type the name of the waypoint, red waypoint 1. And then for our group, our maneuver group, the one on the left, we're going to do the same thing, static waypoint. And we want to go to red waypoint 2. And after they get to waypoint 2, we want them to go to red waypoint 1. So we set 2 waypoints for this because this left group is going to go up. They're going to go to this waypoint. They're going to move here. and then they're going to attack over. And same over here. The other group's going to move here, and then they're going to attack over. So we're giving them a second waypoint. So let's go down. We selected our third group. Go down here and add red waypoint 3. And we're going to add the attack waypoint, red waypoint 1. So we've got our little flank action going on here. We got one mid, we got one right, one left, and then they both attack inward. And possibly if they're engaged, they might go inward beforehand. And make sure we save this again. So at this point, we have our, our red AI set up how we want it to, the basics. And we want to set up some US guys here, some blue layer. So let's go up to the blue layer and set that as active. We're going to go up to prefabs again. We're going to go to MP multiplayer, and we're going to go to spawning, and we're going to put a spawn point in here for our US. This is for us. So put that where you like. I'm going to put it over here. That way there is cover. We have a position to move from. We can go in the house, we go left, we go right. And I like to just save because I just in case, this every once in a while this crashes. So I like to just continuously save as much as I can. Okay, so now that we have our blue spawn point here, we do need to set something else up so that we can actually respawn. On the left-hand side here, under the logic layer, we want to go to our game mode plane. And we want to go to our automatic respawn handler component. Now, when we click on this, we're going to see things changed over here. What we want to do is change our forced faction, and if we want to have a set loadout, we can change that too. Now, periodically this happens where you can't use the drop-down menu. So what we're going to do is we're saved, and we're just going to go ahead and restart the editor and come back, and we'll be able to edit this. All right, so we're back in, and we're just going to hit scenario tutorial world. We're going to load this world up, and hopefully we'll be able to edit this now. All right, so in our logic layer, go back to game mode plane, automatic respawn handler component in the top right, and we'll click the drop down, and force faction is we're going to force to be on the US side. And if you want to set a specific loadout here, you can go in here and pick a loadout. I'm just going to go ahead and pick a rifleman. So every time I spawn, I'll be a rifleman. Now there is a script in here that controls, it pretty much takes the loadouts available and it kind of picks a random one each time you spawn. So if you'd rather do that, just keep this disabled. In this case, we're going to stick with the US rifleman. And make sure we go ahead and save that. Now we do have some AI in here, and it might be, whoa, got launched over here. It might be a little bit much for us to handle, so we're just going to go ahead and go back to blue here and maybe set us up some friends. So I'll go to prefabs, groups, blue 4, and we'll do a sentry team, right? A sentry team would just be hanging out here. And maybe we'll do one out front too. We got some guards at our place. And once again, these guards probably would be looking at the road, so we're going to hit E to go to our rotate. And we're going to rotate them around here so they're kind of facing the road a little bit. And if you can't remember the hotkeys, you can always hover your mouse up top here. You can see the move, the rotate, the scale tool. You can always click on those to cycle between them as well. So we have two blue units here, and we want to give them some things to do, some orders. So we'll go and give them a defend position waypoint, much like we gave a move position to our USSR troops. So we're going to go in here and go to the prefabs again, AI waypoints, and there's a defend waypoint somewhere right here. And we're just going to go ahead and put this right in this area. And you can see it's a mighty blue one. We could even back it up a little bit, center it on the house. And we'll name this blue waypoint 1. So now we can select our sentry teams on the left here. And we can, just like we did with the USSR, we go down to the waypoints, to the static waypoint, and put in blue waypoint 1. And make sure you spell it correctly. So the waypoint has logic attached to it. So, the attack waypoint has AI logic where they'll actually attack. The move one means they're just going to go ahead and run over there. They probably attack if they're engaged. And the defend one, I'm sure, has some logic to maybe engage enemies that come towards this area, but maybe they won't leave this area, for example. So that's why we're using these defined things. And you can go through the components, the AI behavior tree, this kind of stuff. Right click on it and hit jump to script definition if you want to look at the scripts and get a little bit more information. All right, so at this point, we're going to go ahead and save. And we've got a pretty solid basic setup here. We forgot to actually add for our other sentry team. We forgot to add this waypoint, so let's add blue waypoint 1. And save it. Okay, the next step here is to add a win condition for our team. We're going to go ahead and hit create on the bottom left here. We want to go, I already typed this in, trigger, and we want SCR_base trigger entity. It's under the triggers category, second one. And this is just going to get put into the world here. On the top right, we'll name it blue win because this is the blue win condition. We're going to go down to trigger shape type and pick sphere. For this area, I'm going to do 150 and hit draw shape. So this is going to give us a visual representation of what this trigger covers, like what area it covers. So we'll just make a tiny adjustment if you need to. So anything in this is going to be within the trigger's scope. And we want to go to trigger activation type and hit all changes. You do first change, first and last change, it varies depending on what you want to do. And then you want to do periodic queries, which just means it's going to check periodically. And we want to go to the minimum update period, which is 0.1. And the last thing we want to do is add a script here. Now I did yoink this from the Discord because I was partially through writing my own, and then I was like, someone else did it for me already. So I yoinked it. I'll share it with you. There will be a link in the description with the paste bin of the script for both US and Russia. Go ahead and hit plus here and hit user script. And then you're going to copy in here. If you don't know anything about scripting, don't worry right now. I'll be doing a tutorial in the future, going over the basics and then slowly climbing up. So we have, the first line is protected in mi count here. And the last line, make sure is this little curly brace. And so pretty much what all this is saying is, it's checking if there's an actual player. There's comments in here that tell you, checking if there's a player. And, if the player is valid, when they're in there, we're going to add them, add to this variable to keep count of how many enemies there are. And when they die or leave the area, we're going to reduce the count. And you need to edit this if you want to. Since we're in a small area, there's only 6 enemies. I put this number to 0. What this reads as is, if there's 0 enemies, then the US wins. And that's what this does here. It ends the game mode. If you have a larger area, you might want to increase this number on line 23. So if you have, say, a huge area and you don't want to track down like one pesky soldier or a couple little random soldiers, you can change this number to say, hey, if there's less than 10 soldiers, then we win. If there's 10 or less soldiers, then we win. Or if there's 6 or less soldiers, then we win. I'm going to leave it at 0 because we have such a small controlled area. We don't really, it's open. Not really worried about like losing some guy. You hit Control S to save, build, validate scripts. And there should be no errors here. Should be all good. If you do get an error, maybe you didn't copy it correctly, check the formatting here. You need to have these curly braces and open and close, and a close with a semicolon. So just make sure you copy this, correctly in here, compare yours with mine. And then we can close out of this. And on the bottom right, we can get rid of draw shape. We already know what the area looks like, so we don't want that to be in the game. Like, we don't want players looking at that. That's just for us to reference where the trigger area is. We'll save it in the top left. And we'll go ahead and play the mission to check this out. Okay, so we're in the mission. We're going to hold Y, enter Game Master. We're going to cheat a little bit here. And I'm just going to I'm double tapping G to do lightning. Tragic, I know. I just wanted to trigger this quickly, and there we go. U.S. Army has won with the help of Zeus from the sky. And then you can just escape to leave the editor. So we know this script works. We'll add another one on the red layer for the Russians, the USSR, I'll call them Russians, whatever, just in case they end up killing us and our couple soldiers. We still want the game mode to end. So we're going to cheat here. I'm going to hit Control C. I'm going to right click on the red layer, set as active. When I was on blue win, I hit Control C just to verify, to copy. And then I'm going to hit Control V to paste into here on the red layer. We're going to rename this red win. And we're going to go to edit script. And the only two things we're going to change is on line 10, we're going to change USSR to US. On line 30, we're going to change US to USSR. And Control S. And then build and validate scripts in the top left. All good. And we'll go back in game, and because we're great developers, we're going to save, and we're going to test out just to make sure that the game ends also when all the blue people are dead. Go into Zeus. Double tap G. Double tap G. Double tap G. And defeat. Soviet Army has won. Thank you for joining. And escape to leave, and we're good to go. Okay, and the last step we're going to go over here is just how to test this mission. If you wanted to bring this and play this over in the Arma Reforger game, we're going to show you how to set that up to do a local test without actually having to upload it to the workshop. In the future, I'll upload a video on how to publish to the workshop, but small sample projects and projects that aren't going to be turning into like some large, dream of yours that you want to share with everyone, I probably wouldn't recommend uploading everything to the workshop because it's just going to clutter it. So testing locally is important for single player things. That way we don't clutter the workshop with these kind of sample partial projects. So what we're going to do here is make sure that we had saved in the top left, and we can close out of the world editor. On the left hand side here, we're back to our scenario tutorial. We have art missions worlds, and we want to start out with going into the missions folder, right click, create a config file, and we'll do scenario config is what I'm going to call it. And the class we want to do is scr_mission header. And we're going to go back one here. In the art folder, I have an image that I put into the folder here already. If you right click on the art folder, you can hit show in Explorer. And you can double click and you can drag your image in here. Just some, random image for now. It doesn't really matter at this time. We're going to double click into it. We're going to right click on the image and hit register and import, which gives us this EDDS file. And we'll go back to our scenario config and double click. We're going to select a world. And we can do this by clicking in here and dragging this over, or we can just hit the dots and click the world. Name, just author, Sneaky. And we have icon here that we want to get in. So we'll go to the art folder and drag this EDDS to the icon, loading screen, and preview. Due to a current issue, you cannot use the default images. So you need to, find some random image and replace this. And our game mode is just going to be, oh man, if I could spell single player, kill AI. Player count, we're just going to leave it at 1 because it's just us today. And we're going to hit Control S to save. Now, I went over this in the last video. I'm going to go over this again. So if you already know how to do the local testing, you can just ignore this part. We're going to close out of the workbench here. we're going to go into our folder. So in this case, I have Reforger Workshop. This is my scenario tutorial that I made. I'm going to right click and copy it and put it into whatever add-ons folder I have, scenario tutorial. And I'm going to change on my Arma Reforger game, right click properties. I'm going to change my launch options to match the folder name, scenario tutorial. And I'll pull this up just so you can see what's happening here. So the path is H Reforger add-ons right here. And then scenario tutorial is the folder, which you want to go right here. And I'll put this launch options in the description for you to copy. So you just put a path to a custom add-ons folder, and then you specify which add-on you want to add. And we're going to close this, and we're going to hit play on Arma Reforger. And this should show up in our scenarios for us to play. Okay, my game took a second to load. I had a BattleEye block error, and I just kept launching the game, and eventually it worked. But we're going to go into our scenarios here. You can see our source, scenario tutorial, and our name, Cool First Mission, will load into this game. And we're just going to do a quick test. It'll probably be really choppy because I am recording at the same time. And, you know, the recording takes up a little bit of juice from my PC. But we'll go ahead and give this a try. So forgive the FPS you're about to endure in this trial. But yeah, I'm just showing you how to go in here and test this out just to show you that it's functioning. But there you go. We killed all the enemies. U.S. Army has one. Thank you for joining. And we can go back to the main menu. Maybe in the future, we could add a restart capability if we lose. So we don't have to go back and reload the mission. Maybe there's a way to do it within here. We'll have to investigate that and find that out. Thank you guys for watching. There will be a part 2 with co-op and multiplayer features coming out in the future. And I will also make a video on how to publish this to the workshop for the future when you do make a complete mod and you want to share it with other people. I appreciate you guys watching. As always, leave a comment down below if you have any feedback or questions. And you can also check the description for my socials to get in touch with me, or if you just want to see what personal projects I'm working on or check out the stream. Have a good one.